Hello, faithful listeners. My name is Clay Thompson, and I'll be your guide once again in the fiction room. Today's prompt is brought to us from username Rorschach the Mighty. Dumbledore's plan backfires completely. After enduring years of abuse, Harry Potter lashes out, killing the entire Dursley family, setting him on the path to becoming one of history's most terrible dark wizards. As always, I hope you enjoy hearing these stories as much as I enjoy reading them. But without further ado, let us begin with our first story, written by Torturi. Avada Kedavra! Avada Kedavra! Harry strode forward as the two collapsed before him. The pair of Death Eaters had been trying to take him by surprise. But years of living under the Dursleys' torment, coupled with his time as a seeker, had left his senses honed for even the smallest of disturbances. They would have been better off running. At least then Harry would have been able to enjoy hunting them down. Voldemort! Harry roared, his voice echoing in the darkness of the woods. It's time for us to end this little game! He had hunted Voldemort across Britain, waiting for this day. Once, Voldemort had hunted him, thinking him some pathetic child, a last bastion of hope that he needed to crush. What he hadn't known was that at the same time, Harry had been hunting him. Tracking down the Horcruxes had been no easy task, but he had done it. Gringotts, Hogwarts, the Oceanside Cave. That one had been fun, really. Abandoning Dudley there to be torn to pieces more than made up for the disappointment of the Horcrux not being there, and getting to take the real Horcrux from Umbridge. Harry's face twisted with a sadistic smile as he remembered that. His last encounter with Voldemort had surprised everyone. When he had strode into the Ministry of Magic, demanding Voldemort stand before him, the world expected that to be the end of Harry Potter. Voldemort had summoned all of his Death Eaters, hoping to put on a show, to prove once and for all that he was the greatest wizard alive. Their laughter had died in their throats when Harry slew Nagini. The fear in Voldemort's eyes when he realized that he was exposed, that he was vulnerable. Harry lived to see that fear in people's eyes now. Harry Potter. A cold, quiet voice came from behind him. Harry turned and stared into the cat-like eyes of Lord Voldemort, once the most feared dark wizard in history. Harry's pulse quickened. Finally, he would have his revenge. Finally, he would take vengeance on the one who killed his parents, who forced him to go live with the Dursleys, the one who made him endure all the suffering, the starvation, the loneliness. Harry's thoughts were interrupted by a scream of anguish. One of the few hooded figures behind Voldemort ran forward, the hood falling back to reveal the blonde hair and pale skin of Narcissa Malfoy. She fell to her knees next to one of the corpses sprawled on the ground and buried her face in her hands. My son! My son! He was just a boy! How could you? Avada Kedavra! A flash of green light, and Narcissa Malfoy slumped lifelessly on top of her son. Harry lowered his wand. He would not have this moment interrupted by anyone. Well, Tom, Harry spat, a twisted smile forming on his face as he turned to face the Dark Lord. I do believe you've been shown how to duel. Yes, Voldemort said softly, his eyes narrowing. But first, Harry Potter, I bring you a gift. Voldemort waved his hand, and two Death Eaters walked forward into the clearing, dragging someone between them. Harry watched in displeasure as Ronald Weasley was forced to his knees at Voldemort's feet, his hands bound and a filthy rag gagging him. This one was your closest friend at Hogwarts, was he not, Potter? Said Voldemort smugly, running his long fingers across Ron's face. His family took you in, welcomed you. Voldemort laughed coldly. For all the good it did them. Where were you when their home burned, Harry Potter? Crucio! Voldemort stepped back in alarm as Harry's curse caused Ron to scream and thrash against his bindings. Whatever strength had kept him on his knees vanished, leaving him face down in the dirt as he thrashed under Harry's glare. Crucio! Crucio! A savage, twisted grin marred Harry's face. Ronald Weasley had always had everything. A home, family, Quidditch, friends, food, magic. And yet, when they were at Hogwarts, Ron had the audacity to be jealous of him. To be jealous of the boy who had spent weeks locked in a broom closet under the stairs. Of the boy who was lucky when he got a single meal a day. Of the boy who was treated like trash, like dirt, like something you wouldn't want to step in. Of the boy who couldn't remember a single bloody moment of anyone even caring about him. While Ronald Weasley was enjoying Christmas dinner with his family, Harry was hiding in his closet, beaten and bloody from Dudley's new boxing gloves, taping his glasses back together for the umpteenth time. Ron deserved nothing. Harry's breath was coming in gasps. He had been shouting the Cruciatus curse over and over again until he was hoarse. What had once been Ron was now nothing more than a pile in the dirt, waiting for the spiders to come. He looked down at what had once been a friend. Once. Harry and Voldemort stood alone in the woods. The Death Eaters had all fled, not wanting to get caught up in the battle between the two dark wizards. Ron's dying screams still reverberated in Harry's ears, and the boy who lived could not wait to add another voice to the symphony. Well, well, it appears Dumbledore failed you after all, said Voldemort, malice contorting his voice. But Harry could sense something underneath it. Something new. Fear. I'm going to kill you now, Harry Potter, and I will show your corpse to the world as a symbol of my victory. Voldemort began to circle Harry, like a predator watching for his moment to strike. His black robes flowed silently behind him, casting a malicious shadow across the clearing. Harry's laughter was high and vicious, and gave off a feeling of nails scratching on a chalkboard. That's the thing. You can't kill me. When you slaughtered my parents, you made me a Horcrux, Harry spat. You can never kill me. The shock in Voldemort's eyes was exactly what Harry was waiting for. A moment's hesitation for him to bring up his wand and cast his spell. Expelliarmus! Harry shouted, a bolt of red light shooting from his wand. Avada Kedavra! But it was too late. By the time Voldemort had finished his curse, his wand was already resting in Harry's left hand. Now, Crucio! The scream that escaped Voldemort's lips was high and screeching, akin to shattering glass. As Voldemort's screams grew quiet, Harry walked forward, transfiguring a stick on the ground to a large, curved blade. Thunk! Voldemort's screams echoed out again as Harry cut off his wand hand. Now, Harry said, as he knelt over what used to be his greatest foe. I'm going to lock you up somewhere no one will ever find you, Harry said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. Because as long as you're still alive, I can't die either. Wow. I'll admit that I've only read up to Order of the Phoenix because I'm trying to read the books before seeing the movies for the first time. So I'm pretty sure this is not how the final battle would be like, but oh my god, would this make so much sense. The official story could have taken such a turn for the worse, and it shows in a story like this. I know that we've hit the 10-minute mark, but I really want to do another one. So let's finish off with one more story, written by BBF2. Harry glanced nervously at his aunt and uncle at the dinner table, eyes darting between them as they feasted, desperate for their approval.
I must say, Harry, these pork chops are quite exquisite,
Vernon said, taking a momentary break from shoving more food down his mouth. He set down the bone, let out a small belch, and wiped his mouth. Thank you, Uncle, Harry replied sheepishly. Despite going to the trouble of preparing the meal entirely by himself, he stood hungry next to the dinner table, while his relatives indulged.
You know, boy, I'll never approve of your oddities, but we may have some use out of you yet,
Petunia chimed in.
For some reason it never occurred to me to ask you to prepare dinners for us. When you volunteered, I was skeptical. But now, after eating this, I think of all the time I've wasted preparing food for the three of us, when we could have just had you doing it the whole time.
I'm glad you like it, Aunt Petunia, Harry responded quietly, looking at the floor. Of course, the other unspoken reason they were initially apprehensive was that they were afraid Harry would use some kind of magic to help prepare the meal. After all, he had been at Hogwarts for 4 full years now, and they were clueless as to what he was capable of. This is why they were intent on watching Harry like a hawk during the entire preparation process, and only allowed him to prepare the meal for just the two of them on a night that Dudley was staying at his friend's house, just in case anything odd might be afoot. They watched him from start to finish, but Harry had followed the rules by the book. He brought in the meat fresh, cleaned it, prepared it, and cooked it all the old-fashioned Muggle way. No wand, no magic involved in the preparation of the meal whatsoever. He figured surely the way to some sort of semi-workable relationship was through their stomachs. He didn't even care that the meal was split between them and he didn't get any. That wasn't the goal here. He just wanted to make sure that they enjoyed the meal he prepared for them. Vernon took another brief respite from inhaling his meal. With food still in his mouth, he mused,
You know, actually, I do have one small complaint. Could use a tad more seasoning next time.
Harry started to fume. More seasoning? He had gone to such extreme lengths to make it perfect, spent hours to please them, and didn't get even anything to show for it himself. More seasoning? Vernon was wrong, straight out. Every Muggle cookbook he consulted said that this was the perfect amount, and any more would be overkill. Vernon had no idea what he was talking about, and Harry's blood started to boil. He briefly considered grabbing his wand. But no. Harry's resolve returned. He had overcome so much over his first 4 years at Hogwarts, in particular the most recent one. He had to sit there, panicked and afraid for his life, as Voldemort was resurrected with his blood. He still could barely come to terms with the fact that the man he thought was Mad-Eye Moody was actually Barty Crouch Jr., Voldemort's most loyal follower, and was planning to kill him the entire time. He trusted Moody implicitly, and the man had been so kind to him, shown him, and taught him so many things. In spite of himself, he let out a slight chuckle, reminiscing about the time that Moody transfigured Malfoy into a ferret. That moment came as quite the surprise. Until that point, he didn't even realize that wizards could transfigure other people into animals. But it was a valuable lesson learned, and one he took to heart. Satisfied once again, he watched with delight as his aunt and uncle ate the pig that used to be their son. Okay, so that was worth it. Oh, like Harry Potter meets Hannibal Lecter or something and uses his magic to... Yeah. Oh. Well done, sir or madam. Very well done. And now, dear listeners, we must unfortunately bid you farewell once again. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Fiction Room. If you enjoyed today's stories, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It would very much help us. And wherever you are in the world right now, be safe, be well, and we'll see all of you next time.